Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ananya, and I wanted to take just a few minutes to talk about my transition, specifically the mental health aspect of it and how it has changed and evolved over the past few years. For those of you who are wondering, I identify as a transgender woman. And living in the country that I reside in right now, which is Malaysia, there are pros and cons that come with being trans here and being outwardly expressive of my gender. I am lucky that there is a community here that aids and supports queer people, but because this is a Muslim-dominated country, you see, I hesitated to say that, even though I shouldn't have. And I'm just gonna alter the brightness here a little bit because it's getting a little bit overexposed. Because it's a Muslim-dominated country, it can be a little bit daunting to be out as a trans person or as a queer person. And it is for that reason also most of these support groups and support systems are very hidden and often small, not necessarily inaccessible, just small. And the resources that come with helping queer people and trans people aren't necessarily there. Just if you're lucky enough, you can get that support from somebody within the community or an ally. But anyway, back to the topic. I wanted to talk about how my perception of the self and my perception of my reality has altered over the years, has evolved over the years. And I started off with a kind of queerness. I just did not identify by a particular binary. I went by gender fluid, but even before that I was already cross-dressing and experimenting with feminine clothing and feminine accessories, just very deeply in private. And I at the time did not place much significance to the act of mine, the act where I would do these things in secret, because I didn't understand that I wanted to identify by that behavior, by this expression. It just sat in my body as if it was an urge, and I rationalized it like it was a fetish, like it was a sin, which is the reason I wasn't very outward about it when I first started cross-dressing, which was probably around 9 years ago, around then. Even when I was much younger, even when I was in high school, I was already doing this, and that's about 10 plus years ago. Which is now, as I'm talking about this, is it's fascinating to me just how many signs have been there, whether or not I realized it. Even as a child, like as an adolescent child, between the ages of 5 to 10, I was already expressing these urges, and I've even spoken to my parents about wanting to wear this and wear that. But at the time, it appeared as something playful, and understandably there was not much, and there also isn't much access to education with regards to this, to queerness, gender education, sexual education. But anyway, it started off as a kind of desire and urge, which I suppressed but expressed privately within my own space. And I would try and open up to those who I trusted in my close circle. But because I myself did not know the significance of these behaviors and these thoughts, it appeared to others like it wasn't very significant either. Fast forward perhaps to the age of around 22, I had the privilege of studying abroad, and in Toronto. Because I was studying in Toronto, I had access to meet more trans people over there and more queer people over there. It just so happened that my roommate with whom I was staying in a basement, we four of us were sharing a basement. Two of them were Malaysians and one of them was Canadian. And the lady who was staying in the room right beside my room happened to be a trans woman. What do you know, right? It's funny how the universe works. It's just that everybody in my environment, even in Canada, was so queer-phobic that I myself was very afraid to communicate with this person. And eventually I opened up to this person because they felt like a safe person. And before even speaking to this basement neighbor of mine, would cross-dress in private even while I was in Toronto. Luckily for me, I built the courage to speak to my basement neighbor and come out to her as a queer person, as a gender fluid person. I expressed my interest in dressing up, in expressing femininity, wearing accessories, and they gave me a space to just be. But unfortunately, it was very close to the end of my time studying in Canada, and I had to already kind of come back because of COVID as well, that suddenly struck us. My God. Just reminiscing the time, how the sequence of events, I came out to this person and I immediately had to run back, and I couldn't even exercise the opportunity to express myself within a safe space with this person. But I'm very grateful that they gave me space to express myself and to come out, right? Because that alone changed everything. It created a trajectory for me to embrace my expression, not to keep it hidden, not to assume it as a taboo, but to treat it like it is a norm. Fast forward 1.5 years from that moment, and I was living in Malaysia and working here already, still cross-dressing in private. I finally realized that I am a trans person, that I wanted to identify by this by a more outwardly feminine expression. Now the politics and the dynamics of this binary versus non-binary is something we can talk about in a different conversation, because while I consider myself to be pretty non-binary in the sense that the way I am, the way I speak, even with my voice, I don't particularly want to lean towards a particular binary, but I do identify as a trans woman because I feel more aligned with womanhood. I feel more aligned with the societal placements of womanhood, and that can be controversial in its own, but I am open to conversation. I'm open to criticism, so let's have a conversation about it. All right, stop throwing the dagger. I can see you holding the daggers. I can see you waiting to throw it at me. Haha, you cannot hit me. It will go right through me because I am willing to take as many stabs as you want to give me. I am always willing to learn, and I'm always willing to accept your point in conversation. Back to the point. I finally realized I was trans, and at this point, I had just begun having real conversations with myself about how I wanted to express myself and with whom I wanted to express this femininity with. So it started off with my close circle, with my close friends, and I'm so grateful to have had these friends that even though this kind of expression, this queerness wasn't a norm, they were willing to give me space to just express myself. And not just that, to make me not feel so alone, they would even often dress up with me, despite being cis heterosexual men. And let me tell you how grateful I am for that. Oh my God, to have cis het men cross-dress, wear feminine clothes, in order for me not to feel so alone while I was still in the stage of discovering myself. Wow, I am truly privileged, truly privileged. But even so, there was a kind of loneliness because I hadn't fully embraced it. I hadn't begun transitioning. It was more of a self-acceptance. But even though small, it was very significant for me. It led to the trajectory towards discovering transitioning, like HRT, and speaking to doctors, meeting other queer people, meeting other trans people. Probably at the age of 23 or 24, I finally had the courage to speak to a doctor and to speak to a psychiatrist, just to apologies, I had to remove my phone from the phone stand because that's how hot it is in this country. My phone started overheating just from sitting in the phone stand because the sun is hitting it directly. Anyway, as I was saying, I needed more clarity and more how do I say, a better idea of what I should do next in terms of HRT, in terms of embracing my queerness and my gender identity. Doing that, taking that leap, taking that step, that first step on my own, alone, was everything I needed. It was the entire reason that I am here today. It is something that I will always be grateful for, that I'll always be thankful to myself for taking that step, because it wasn't a nudge that came from anyone. It was a nudge that I had to give myself, because I believed that I owed myself that step forward. Fast forward 2 years from there, I have been on HRT for 2 years now. So nice to think about that I have been on this journey for a while. I'm holding my phone case here because it was overheating, so in order to give it some room to breathe, I took it out. My mental health has improved a lot. I feel more aligned with myself, and in doing that, I feel like my interactions with my world, my reality, are more authentic. Because I wasn't fully embracing and accepting my identity, everything that has been happening, even my approaches to mental health in the past, I feel to view all of those things as very authentic or very real, because I don't know, I feel like this is a common thing among trans people, where you kind of don't feel like you're alive when you hadn't begun to embrace your identity and your gender expression. So I guess this is all to say I'm very grateful for all the little steps that I've taken to come here. I'm not just out to my close friends anymore. I'm also out to my family. I'm out to my parents, and these all required like little pockets of courage that I did not just build on my own over the years. I built along with the friends and the people in my life, especially my family members, who held space for me, who held my secret. Very grateful for that, and they are still supportive of me and always give me space when I need to talk or when I need to just be. And this is inclusive of my parents. Now that I've come out to them, it took them a while, but man, it didn't really take that long. Like, kudos to my parents, to my mom and my dad. Shout out to y'all for being like the real G's, because I don't know, it was really daunting to come out to them, but that's a story for another day, okay? That's its own video. Coming out, embracing my gender identity, embracing myself, how I want to express myself to this world, has allowed me to be and feel more authentic with my interactions, with my reality, and everybody in it. So even though the mental health struggles are still there, where I do feel a kind of emptiness from time to time, I'm grateful that I get to feel these things as myself and not as someone that I used to just, like a shell that I just used to occupy. I feel like that's a really good analogy, a really good way to put it. A shell that I used to occupy So even though the struggles from then to now in terms of mental health may not have necessarily dissipated or disappeared, they've evolved in a way that have allowed me to approach them with authenticity, with genuinity, and that means the whole world to me, because now, even though I do struggle with mental health, it's very real, it's very tangible, it's something that I want to work on, because I feel alive in this body. I feel more like myself than I have ever felt in my entire life. And that's saying a lot as a person who struggles with depression and anxiety. I would rather experience these struggles as myself than as somebody I'm not. Anyway, thank you for staying this long and for entertaining my self conversation. Please participate in the conversation, leave a comment, say hello, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.